Hi there, this is Books for Me, where we share with you the express version of a curated collection of game-changing books. This is the express version of Factfulness.
Factfulness by Hans Rosling is a book about how often we are led to misunderstand the world. Rosling was a Swedish physician, statistician, and public health expert who used data visualization to communicate complex ideas about global health and development in a clear and engaging way. He was a powerful advocate for global health and development, and his work has helped to change the way we understand the world. Rosling died in 2017 at the age of 68. He left behind a legacy of knowledge and inspiration. His work has helped to change the way we understand the world. Factfulness is a must-read for anyone who wants to have a more accurate understanding of the world. It's a book that will help you to see the world through the lens of data and to make better decisions based on evidence. So let's start.
Chapter 1: The Gap Instinct.
We have a tendency to overestimate the gap between the rich and the poor, the healthy and the sick, the developed and the developing world. This is due to a number of factors, including the media's focus on negative news and our own tendency to compare ourselves to those who are better off. Example, many people believe that the gap between the rich and the poor is growing wider. However, the data shows that the proportion of people living in extreme poverty has fallen from 90 to 10% in the last 200 years. This means that the gap between the rich and the poor is actually shrinking.
Chapter 2: The Negativity Instinct.
We have a tendency to focus on the bad news and ignore the good news. This is because our brains are wired to pay attention to threats. However, this can lead to a distorted view of the world, where we believe that things are getting worse when they are actually getting better. Example, the media often focuses on bad news stories, such as wars, natural disasters, and crimes. This can give us the impression that the world is a dangerous and scary place. However, the data shows that the world is actually becoming safer and more peaceful. For example, the global rate of homicide has fallen by half in the last 50 years.
Chapter 3: The Straight Line Instinct.
We have a tendency to think that trends will continue in a straight line. However, this is often not the case. Trends often slow down, stop, or even reverse. This is because the world is complex and there are many factors that can affect the course of events. Example, many people believe that population growth will continue to accelerate, leading to overpopulation and resource shortages. However, the data shows that population growth is slowing down and is projected to peak at around 11 billion people in the coming decades. This means that we are less likely to face the challenges of overpopulation than we once thought.
Chapter 4: The Destiny Divide Instinct.
We have a tendency to divide the world into two groups, us and them. We see ourselves as the good guys and others as the bad guys. This can lead to prejudice, discrimination, and conflict. Example, many people believe that the world is divided into two groups, us and them. We see ourselves as the good guys and others as the bad guys. However, the data shows that we are all more similar than we are different. For example, people in all countries value the same things, such as family, health, and education.
Chapter 5: The Generalization Instinct.
We have a tendency to make generalizations about groups of people, such as Muslims, immigrants, or refugees. However, these generalizations are often inaccurate and misleading. This is because people within any group vary widely. Example, not all Muslims are the same, and not all immigrants are the same.
Chapter 6: The Single Perspective Instinct.
We have a tendency to see the world from our own perspective and ignore the perspectives of others. This can lead to misunderstanding and conflict. Example, people in the West often see the world through the lens of democracy and human rights. However, People in other parts of the world may have different priorities, such as economic development and national security.
Chapter 7: The Urgency Instinct.
We have a tendency to think that problems need to be solved immediately. This can lead to rash decisions and unintended consequences. It is important to take the time to understand the problem and to consider different solutions before making a decision. Example, after the 9/11 attacks, the US government invaded Afghanistan and Iraq. This was a rash decision that led to many unintended consequences, such as the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people and the destabilization of the region.
Chapter 8: The Blame Reflex.
When things go wrong, we have a tendency to blame someone else. This is because it is easier to blame someone else than to take responsibility for our own actions. It is also because we often have a need to find an explanation for why bad things happen. Example, after the 2008 financial crisis, many people blamed the banks for being greedy and irresponsible. However, the crisis was caused by a number of factors, including government deregulation and risky lending practices by borrowers.
Chapter 9: The Doom and Gloom Instinct.
We have a tendency to have a negative view of the world. We believe that things are getting worse and that there is no hope for the future. However, the data shows that the world is actually getting better in many ways. For example, the global rate of extreme poverty has fallen by half in the last 20 years. Example, many people believe that the world is facing a number of crises, such as climate change, overpopulation, and pandemics. While these are all serious challenges, the data shows that we are making progress in addressing them. For example, the cost of renewable energy has fallen dramatically in recent years, making it more affordable to switch to clean energy sources.
Chapter 10: The Overdramatization Instinct.
We have a tendency to exaggerate the importance of events and make them seem more dramatic than they actually are. This is because our brains are wired to pay attention to threats. However, this can lead to a distorted view of the world, where we believe that everything is a crisis. Example, the media often exaggerates the risk of terrorism. This can give us the impression that the world is a very dangerous place. However, the data shows that the risk of being killed in a terrorist attack is very low. In fact, you are more likely to be killed by a lightning strike than by a terrorist attack. In conclusion, in Factfulness, Hans Rosling argues that the world is getting better in many ways. He also argues that we need to be aware of our biases and to try to see the world objectively. Here are 3 practical suggestions for putting the knowledge learned in Factfulness into practice. 1. Be aware of your biases. We all have biases, but it is important to be aware of them so that they do not cloud our judgment. One way to do this is to expose yourself to different perspectives and to challenge your own beliefs. 2. Use data to inform your decisions. Don't rely on your gut instinct or on what you see in the media. Take the time to gather data and to analyze it carefully before making a decision. 3. Be optimistic about the future. The world is facing many challenges, but we are making progress in addressing them. By working together, we can create a better future for everyone. Additional tips: challenge your assumptions. Don't take everything you hear at face value. Ask yourself why someone is saying something and what evidence they have to support their claims. Be curious. Seek out new information and be open to learning new things. Be humble. No one knows everything. Be willing to admit when you are wrong and to learn from others.
Thanks for listening to Books for Me. For full details, don't forget to buy the book. Get inspired. Be a game changer.